Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on how to install Anaconda on Windows 10. And I'm recording this at the beginning of the spring semester in 2018. And I'm hoping this is going to have a life of a year or more. So there are a couple of implications of that. Even before that, first of all, I'm recording this for students in my classes. So I am going to publish it on YouTube. And if you found your way here and you're not in one of my classes, well, you're certainly welcome to stay, but you might find that this is really tailored to the needs of people in my classes. So with that caveat, you're welcome to stay. The other thing is, for students in my classes, we'd like this to have a pretty long life. And that means that when you follow the tutorial to install Anaconda on your machine, you're probably not going to be using the exact same versions of software that I am. And what I'm going to tell you is this. The general rule that I'd like you to follow is always install the newest version of everything unless you've been told otherwise. So today I've got a version of Windows 10 that I updated just a few days ago, so it's current. And we're going to be downloading the most current version of Anaconda and related stuff. Okay. By the time that you do the install, if this is the summer semester or the fall semester, it could easily be true that the versions are further along. So typically in my classes, if there's some version conflict that I'm aware of, I'll get the word out. Okay, I'll say, well, we normally install the newest version, but in this case, we don't want to use version blah blah. But generally speaking, the new version of everything works okay together, and that's what our goal is, unless you hear otherwise. Okay? All right, so how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to start out by firing up Edge. Okay. And here we've got a copy of my schedule from before, the course schedule, and we don't want to look at that right now. So let's do a search for Anaconda download. Okay, and here we are, downloads Anaconda. There you go. So first of all, let's take a peek. What is Anaconda? As I recall, they've got a couple of good sentences here. Let's see. With over 4.5 million users, the open source Anaconda distribution is the easiest way to do Python, data science, and machine learning. So it is a distribution of Python and Python packages or libraries, and it's kind of all bundled up very neatly, and with an eye toward versions of things that go together. And on top of that, in addition to the Python compiler and the packages that are really just bolt-ons to the Python language itself, there's a rich assortment of packages here that particularly are useful for data science. So since I teach at two iSchools, a lot of my students, either in my course or in a subsequent course, are going to be working towards some kind of a data science goal, I'd like you to have an environment already set up that makes those tools easy to use. And that's what Anaconda is, and that's why we're using it. Okay? So let's go back to that initial page. And here we are. And you'll see that the current version is 5.01. Although what is kind of interesting is that this kind of family of Anaconda versions is called Anaconda 3. So this is really, I think, Anaconda 3.5.0.1. In any case, we're always going to want the latest version, unless you hear otherwise. You can see that there are icons here to download the software for a particular operating system, but their website is pretty good at detecting that we're on Windows. Okay, and it's also true, it does that for the Mac. So then we got two choices, Python 3.6, Python 2.7. And either may be aware or you may not be aware yet, is that there have been two branches of Python for quite a while, Python 2 and Python 3. And Python 3 took a while to take hold, years and years and years. But it's going gangbusters these days. So in my classes, we don't fool with Python 2 at all. Okay, so we don't want to download the Python 2 version, we want to download the Python 3 version. So we're going to click on download. And when we do this, it is going to ask us if we want to get the Anaconda cheat sheet. And the answer is yes, we do. One of the ways that you work with Anaconda is at the command line. And it's pretty hard, at least for me, to remember the commands. And they've got this really great two-page PDF, which you can either use as a PDF or print. That is a great crutch to remember the command line arguments that you need to use. So if you haven't already done this, give them your email. Say you want to get the starter guide. Okay. Now this this copy of Windows 10 is really a virtual machine. It's running on my Mac, and it doesn't have the email installed. So we're going to get our cheat sheet a different way. Okay, so I'm just going to click no thanks. You're probably going to want to go ahead and say get the starter guide. Okay, and now let's go down here. What do I want to do with it? Well, I want to save it. And it's running a security scan and some downloads. And while that's going on, let's also let's take the time to find our way to the cheat sheet, because we're not going to get it via email. So I'm going to do a search for Anaconda cheat sheet. Okay. And here's the PDF that I was telling you about. And here it's looking pretty good. So this is the way I would say to get it. You'd probably want to save it. You'd probably want to print it out. This is pretty good stuff. Okay, so we're going to open the folder that we downloaded to. And now I'm going to minimize Edge because we're not going to use the cheat sheet for a little while. Okay. Okay, so in my downloads folder, I have the installation application for Anaconda. And as I mentioned before, it's really Anaconda 3, 3-5.0.1. Okay. And it was able to detect it. We've got the 64-bit version of Windows on this machine, and it's going to download the appropriate version. Okay, you obviously want to download the version for the operating system that you are running. And now we're going to do a double click on here on that installer file, and we're just going to walk through. And the first thing it does is to ask us if we agree to the license. I agree. Install for just me or all users, and notice for all users requires admin privileges, and just me is recommended. That's the default. Take the default. Okay. And where does it want to put it? Well, it wants to put it under C users ktrainer, that's me, Anaconda 3. Okay, that seems okay. I'll take that. And now I'm going to click on next. And here's some options. The question is, do we want to add Anaconda to your path environment variable? And it says it's not recommended. And I have followed those directions and done okay. So I'm going to tell you, follow what they recommend here, which is no check in the top box and a check in the bottom box. Okay, and just say install. And this takes a little bit of a while to install. So I'm going to pause the recording so you don't have to watch this and listen to me. And I'll be back when we're at the end of the install. See you soon. Hi, we're back. And so the installation has completed. That took on my machine, it took about 10 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit longer. So pretty fast, but still some substantial time. So I'm going to click on the next button, and says we're done, essentially. Learn more about Anaconda Cloud, etc. So let's click on finish. Okay. And they brought us to learning about Anaconda Cloud. We're not really using Anaconda Cloud, so we're not going to keep that tab. And I'm not going to keep my download tab because I'm fine. And then I've got my cheat sheet here. Now that's actually the distribution starter guide. Anaconda Navigator cheat sheet. This is nice. So I did not see this before. This starter cheat sheet is not the cheat sheet I was actually looking for. I was looking for the Conda cheat sheet, command line package and environment manager. So let's go, let's see if we can find that. How about that? Get us another tab. Let's say Conda cheat sheet. Conda cheat sheet, let's look here. Now that's the starter guide. It's the one I already have. And let's click on the top one. That's it. That's my Conda cheat sheet. Okay, so we are going to take a look at Conda Navigator. So that's probably worth downloading it as well. Okay, so there are all kinds of good cheaty things. We're going to look at Anaconda Navigator next. Okay, so let's for right now, let's minimize the browser, and let's go over to the what I call the start button. It's probably got some fancier name now. Lower left, give that a click, And let's look alphabetically, and you'll see that under A for Anaconda, we have a group, Anaconda 3, 64-bit. And if we click on the little glyph on the right, we see all these things that we have. Now, the things that we're going to be interested in today are the Anaconda Navigator and the Anaconda Prompt. In fact, we're going to work with both of those. The Jupyter Notebook is not something that I cover here, but it's certainly a very popular feature, and it's used in some of my courses and a lot of data science courses. And I just want to point out that that's installed, okay? And that's ready to go. We're not going to use it here, but it's installed. Okay, so I usually don't like to come over to this area to find my applications. I usually like to pin them to the taskbar. Now, that's a little bit old school, but I'm an old school guy. So I'm going to right click on Anaconda Navigator, and I'm going to say More, and then Pin to Taskbar. And then I'm going to right click on Anaconda Prompt and go to More and say Pin to Taskbar. And these are the two ways that we're going to configure our Python environments with Anaconda. Okay? Very good. Alrighty. So, and I'm even going to shrink my file manager. Let's do that. So let's fire up this Anaconda Navigator. And I think we're seeing some under the covers stuff. It was running a script there. And somewhere along the line, at least right now in time, there's an opportunity to download a new version. So thanks for installing, all the kind of stuff. Let's say, okay, don't show again. Okay. And then let's go up here. Instead of waiting for it to tell us if there's a new version, can we get that? No, we're going to have to wait for us to tell us there's a new version available. Okay, fine. Okay, so over in the navigation panel to the left, we are interested in environments. Okay. In addition to the fact that there's more than one line of Python compiler, one for Python 2, one for Python 3. Even after you choose your poison there, and again, we're always, in my classes, we're always going to choose Python 3. I consider that to be the winning team. Then it's a question of how much other stuff, how many other Python packages have you got installed to support what you're trying to do? Okay? And so what are the use cases here? Well, one is, let's say you're in a plain old Python programming course and you want to do plain old Python programming. Well, I think you want to set up an environment for that. Okay? You could use the default one that we have here called root, but for maintainability reasons, I think that's a bad idea. Okay? So, root is just essentially the base install. And so there's an environment called root, and sometimes when you look at it, it refers to itself as root. Sometimes it refers to itself as base. Well, that's because it's the base installation of Anaconda. And when we click on the root environment, we have all these packages over here that are installed. And we're seeing the installed ones because up here in the controls we have picked installed. But for instance, we could pick not installed. Okay, that's a lot more. These are all things that are available through the libraries of the Anaconda folks, but they're just not installed in the environment that we have here, the root or the base environment. We can ask if any of the things that we have here are upgradable, and it says this runtime is upgradable. And I'm just going to say, okay, if it's upgradable, let's click on that and let's do the update. And you'll notice in the bottom right we have we can either apply the update or clear it. Let's click apply. And we'll see a pop-up window here where there's some action. And they're going out and they're getting, first of all, they're going to tell us the packages that are going to be updated. So that runtime package, the Anaconda package, the Conda package, and this PyCosat are all going to be updated. And those look fine. So let's click apply. And look down at the bottom. You'll see some action of the of it actually doing the update. Now, I might have mentioned this before, but I'll say it now. I haven't used Anaconda Navigator a whole lot. There are two ways to work with Anaconda to configure it and to manage the environments that you set up. The original way that we had is at the command line. And the Anaconda Navigator came along more recently. And here it's saying, oh, now we have a new version of Anaconda Navigator. Do we want to update? Sure, yes. Let's click yes. Do quit Anaconda Navigator? Yes. And I've had problems before in trying to do this, that I get to this point and I don't, this dialog is covered. So I think I'm updating, and no, you have to find this dialog box and click update now. Then it really starts to update. Right? So here, the first thing we're going to take a look at is how to configure these environments that we're going to use for our development and testing and production and all those things. How to configure those with Anaconda Navigator, which I'm pretty new to. And then I'm going to show you how to do it at the command line, which I've got more experience with and is probably the kind of stuff you'll see more in textbooks and tutorials. And then we'll come around and see that they really are just two user interfaces for the same thing. Okay. So now we're going to say, okay, launch the new version of Navigator. And it doesn't really appear any different. Perhaps it's more stable. In keeping with the general advice that I'd like you to follow of doing the new version, then I'd like to do that. Oh, and here's what's interesting. Let's look at environments. And in between the two versions, okay, what had been called root is now called base. Okay, so this, and I think that's probably a better name for it. This is just, the base environment. So what's in the base environment that we would recognize? Well, there's a lot of, first of all, let's look for Python. So the Python, the Python interpreter and IDE is in here. And let's just go find it. Python. Okay, the Python general purpose programming language. You'll see that that's at 3.6.3. Okay, but we've also learned that there is some potential updates available. Okay, so do we want to update these? I'm going to say not, because we're really not going to use the base. Okay, I'm going to tell you to leave the base alone for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our own environments. So let's do that. We've done enough with the base. What else did I want to show you? I wanted to show you, we said that Jupyter Notebooks was installed. So let's just go back to J for Jupyter, and you'll see there's a bunch of Jupyter stuff. Okay, and people who want to do some data analysis with files, they may want to work with NumPy. Okay, so I just want to show you that NumPy is in here. Sorry, NOP. NumPy's here, and another very popular package for data analysis is pandas. So let's look for pandas, and pandas should be in here too, right? So, and those are just the most very popular Python packages for data science, and there's a lot of other stuff here. Another thing that's installed is this pip. Now, pip is the Python package manager, and we're going to be using that more explicitly when we get into working at the command line. So, the first use case we have for an environment that we want to set up is, let's set an environment up that we're going to use for plain old Python programming. So we're doing a plain old Python programming class. So go down here to the bottom, click on Create to create an environment. Okay. We're going to give it a name, and I'm just going to call it plain _old Python development. And I would say to not put spaces in the name. I don't know if you can, but this is a directory name, so you'd want to use underscores. Okay, you have to tell it the version of Python that you want. So the default is Python 3.6. That's good. The question is, do we also want to include R? And in certain courses, I think you would, but for the courses I'm teaching in the current semester, not. So I'm going to leave that off. And then I'm going to click on Create. And if you look down at the bottom here, you can see a lot of action going on. And again, we're sort of doing what we did when we did the update on what had been the root and is now called base. It's going to take 5-10 minutes to do this, so I'm going to pause the recording again so you're not watching paint dry. So I'll be back once we've got this built. See you then. Oh, that came back even faster than I thought. Okay. And what's interesting here is that this is more cut down. Okay, this doesn't have all the various things in it that were in the base distribution. So this is kind of a cut down distribution. Okay, you notice that the runtime has an available update, and we're just going to click on that available update and say apply. And that didn't take very long the last time we did it. And we're going to apply. Okay. Looks good to me. All right, so what else are we going to do? Well, what's here Python-wise? Well, interestingly, version of Python that we got was even newer than what was in the original download. What was in the original download was 3.6.3, and when we built this, when we did the create and we built this from scratch, we got 3.6.4. Pretty good. And how do you know the difference between these? Well, here's what you can do with these environments in Anaconda Navigator. You can click the play button, okay, and it says you can open a terminal or open with Python. So let's open a terminal. That'll get us to the command line. Okay, and here's what's interesting. When you're working in the command line and you properly activated one of your environments, you'll see the name of it in parens on the left side. So we're in a plain old Python development, okay, and then let's type in Python, which will fire up the interpreter -- version, and just say, well, tell us your version and quit, and you can see it's got 3.64. Okay, so let's quit this command line window, and let's go back and let's say, okay, what would happen if we took the base installation and we tried the same thing? And we'll hit play. Notice that there are more things to click on in here. Why? Well, because I have a full distribution of the Anaconda package and not the cut down one that I had for plain old Python programming. We have IPython, which is another interactive Python environment, and we've got Jupyter Notebook available because we have the packages for them, so we can fire up them, or we can open up a terminal or the interpreter. So let's do the terminal again. We've already seen that, and you will notice that I don't have any I don't have the name of an environment out here to the left. Okay, I'm using the base environment, but it doesn't actually say that. And I can say Python version, and 3.6.3 is what was in that base version. So that's working fine. And I just want to also show you that you can fire up out of either of these. You can say open with Python, which will get you the Python interpreter and the idle IDE, and here we are in the IDE, and you'll see that we're in 3.6.3 here. Okay, and how do you quit that? Well, with quit and then parens. So there's a function called quit that you call, and that quits it. Okay. And if we had done the same thing on plain old Python development, if we came down here and then we hit the play button and said, well, open with Python, we'd get the same kind of thing, but 3.6.4. Okay? And again, I'm going to quit this. Okay. Okay, so what if we had a more complicated use case? Like, for instance, in a couple of my classes this semester, we're going to be working with a web development framework called Django, and we don't have all the packages for Django. So what if we wanted to do that? Okay, well, we could set up a proper environment for that right here. So one of the things that we can do is, instead of creating a whole new environment from scratch, okay, we can decide to clone one that already has some of the features that we want. So we're going to take the plain old Python development one and highlight that, and then we're going to go down to the bottom and clone. Okay, and then we're going to call this Django, D-J-A-N-G-O, Django 11 development. And I call Django 11 because I know that's the version that we're using these days. So I'm going to say clone. Click on that. And it's not going to take as long because all I'm doing is cloning what I already have. So it's not pulling things down from some kind of a server. It's just copying things over here. And I'm sorry, it goes in alphabetical order, so it just was automatically on Django 11 development. And you notice it's got the same things that we had in plain old Python development, plus this VS 2015 runtime is already updated because the thing we cloned already had it updated. But is there any Django here? Nope, there's no Django here. So how could we install Django using Navigator? Well, let's go up to this a drop-down box at the top, and instead of picking installed, let's pick not installed. Okay, and it's in alphabetical order, so D-J-A-N-G-O, Django, named after the jazz guitarist Django Reinhardt. And there it is, Django. Okay, so it says the version available is 1.11.3. Okay, let's click that. Okay, and as soon as we click that, it's going to say, okay, let's apply. So we apply it. And now it gives us a list of the packages that we're going to get. So we're going to get more than just the Django package. We're going to get some packages that we need to support that. So now we're going to apply. And it won't take too long. You can see down at the bottom we're fetching and we're doing all kinds of things here. In the meantime, instead of having the user interface set to not installed, let's go to installed. Okay. And that looks good. We still don't have a Django there, and if we look down the bottom, we're still working. We're still fetching. Now, these can take a while. I'm here at my office at UWM, and we've got a T1 connection here, so things come down pretty fast. So let's look where we got. We've got Django. Okay. What's interesting is it gave us Django 1.11.8. So that's even a little bit newer than what it was telling us that we were going to get. And that's that there. Okay. And of course, what's the Python that it has? 3.6.4. Okay. So this is enough to get you started on Django version 11, which is well, in my Django course, at least for the current semester, the first tutorial that we're going to use is going to be Django version 11. So that's that. And then again, if you wanted to see what was out there, you could do the same thing. You could click on the play button. You could open a terminal. And again, sorry, it says plain old Python development. That's not what we want. Django 11 development. Okay. And now click on that one. Open terminal. And you can see that we're in Django 11 development. So it turns out that when you're a Python developer, you need more than one combination of packages to make things go. I've got a textbook where we're still working on Django 8. And so when we're working with that, we create an environment for Django 8. So we get the same experience that you got, that the author gets in the textbook. So you could easily have 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 environments, depending on how many use cases you have. And probably everybody is going to have this, if we go back here, as something with which to do plain old Python development. Okay. Could you use the base or the root? Yeah, you could. Okay. I kind of like to have my own version beyond that. All right, so that's how you do it with Anaconda Navigator. How do you do it with the command line? Okay, so let's close Anaconda Navigator. See if it will listen to us. It can be, oh, do I want to quit? Yes, I do, and I don't want to see that again either. So, yes. Okay. So, let's look at that cheat sheet. Okay. So, we want the Conda cheat sheet. Here's the one for the Navigator. That'll probably help you there. I have never even seen that before today. Okay, so what we have here, it's a little bit hard to see. I'm trying to figure out how to make this bigger here. Let's try Shift Control Plus. Yeah, Shift Control Plus is making it bigger. So let's just say the thing to check that you have Anaconda properly installed is that you would just click Conda info. You would put in Conda info on the command line, and you would see information about your installation. So let's go do that. Okay. And I want to show you how to do it the wrong way. You'll remember that we have a little icon down here on the taskbar that was called Anaconda Prompt. That's going to give us a command line that is configured to work with Anaconda. Okay, but if you take just the plain old Windows the command line, it's not configured to work with Anaconda, and I just want to demonstrate that with you so that if you have that error, you're going to remember what's going on. So let's come over to the start thing, and let's go down and let's find the plain old Windows command line. So down at the bottom, Windows System, Command Prompt. Okay, and if this were properly configured, you could say, you could put in Conda space info, and it would work fine. But oh, it's not recognized as a command. And if you go and Google on this or search on this, you'll find out that you haven't properly set your path environment variable. So you could go do that, or you could actually use the version of the command prompt that they've already configured for us. And that's what we're going to do. So we're not going to use the plain old command prompt. Okay. Instead, we're going to take this Anaconda Prompt, and you'll look up here in the title bar. It calls itself Anaconda Prompt, which is pretty good. Okay. And you see when we come here, it explicitly says that we're using the base environment. Okay. All right, so in the base environment, I think we had Python 3.6.3. So let's just ask Python, what version are you? Version. 3.6.3, that makes sense. So how could we tell it? How could we find out what environments we have? You know, if we're using that navigator thing, well, we can get them to display. How could we get them to list out at the command line? Well, if we look over on our cheat sheet, we'll see that there is a command, Conda. Well, got to get back down here. Conda Env list the environments. Okay, and it says here we've got base, we've got Django 11 development, and we've got plain old Python development. Okay, and we're currently using base. Okay, so how do we use and not use particular environments? Okay, well, what's interesting is that some of the commands are changing for this, and they're a little different for Windows than they are for Mac. Okay, so according to the documentation, okay, the way to activate a environment is to just type activate plain old Python development, and there it is. That's right where we are. Well, what version of Python was in there? Is the interpreter in the IDE? 3.6.4, I think. So let's look. Python version. There it is. So we're actually using that. Well, how do you stop using an environment? Well, there are two ways. One is you can say you want to deactivate it. Okay. The other one is that you can say that you want to activate on another one. Okay. So I think we can just type deactivate here. And we go back to base. Now, what happens if we deactivate that? Deactivate the base. I think we just go back to nothing at all. Okay. So here we've got the situation where it probably won't be able to find Python. So let's say Python -- version, because we're not using. So without any environment at all, I can't even find the Python compiler. So how can we say we want to use a particular environment? Okay. Again, we can either say Conda activate. We could say Conda activate. And let's try this time. Let's try Django 11 development. So Conda is not recognized. Okay, so that doesn't work. So I'm going to hit the up arrow to get my last command. And now I'm going to left arrow to come over here. And now I'm going to get rid of the word Conda. In some versions of this, you had to type Conda first. But no, it looks like we just use activate. I'm going to come back to the end of the line and press enter. And where are we? So, oh, this is interesting. Since we're not in the base, we can't even find Anaconda. So we shouldn't have deactivated the base. Okay, we're not going to do that. So let's go. I tell you, you learn as you go. we're going to close this Anaconda Prompt window, and we're going to open another one. And you'll notice now we're on the base. Okay. So now we could say Conda activate what was it? Django 11 development, I think. There it is. So that works out fine. So you can say Conda activate or Conda deactivate, or you can just say activate or deactivate. And the command line for those are a little bit different in Mac OS. Okay, so we can use the environments just fine here. Oh, and what if we want to know what was in the environment? So we could say Conda List. And this gives us a list of the packages in Django 11 development. And let's see, we got Python 3.6.4, that's good. And we've got Django 1.11.8, and that's good too. Those are what we were expecting when we built this up in Anaconda Explorer. Okay, what if we wanted to create a new environment from the command line? Can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. And first of all, let's deactivate and go back to base. Deactivate, and now we've gone back to base. And let's say we want to create an environment. So there's a Conda create, and there's a -- name argument. And let's call this, okay, another Django 11. Okay? And we also have to tell it which version of Python we want. So Python equals 3.6. So it's solving the environment. Do we want to proceed? Yeah, we do. This is what it's going to put into it. Okay. And it's verifying, it's executing, and it's done. So it says we can either start using it with Conda activate, and later we can do it with Conda deactivate. So let's say, now, does it have a Django 11 in it? Well, let's look. So let's say Conda List. This is a list of the packages. And let's just look at the packages that I have. I've got quite a few of them. But do I have Django? Let's look. DJ. No DJ. I don't have Django. So how do you install Django when you're working at the command line? Well, you use there's a Conda command to do it, but one of the things you're going to see in a lot of tutorials and text is the use of the utility program pip, and that is that's the package installer for Python. Okay. Now we already have pip, so we can say pip --help, and these are all the things we can do with pip. But I'm going to do something now in my course where we use Django, at least in the current semester. One of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to go to a tutorial called from an organization that I really like. They're very popular, called Django Girls. And they have a tutorial that works with, right now today, it works with Django version 1.11. And so now what we're going to have to say is we're going to have to pick a, oh, I'm sorry. When we did that Django list, we were still in the base. We hadn't actually activated that one. So let's do this. Sorry, when we did the Anaconda list. So let's do Conda List. Okay, and that shows us all the packages in base. So then let's say Conda Env list. That lists all the environments. Okay, and then let's activate Conda activate another Django 11. And now we can say Conda list. And now we're not going to show all those packages. That makes more sense. Okay, so we've got Python, but we don't have Django yet. So how we're going to install Django? Well, a really popular way to do it is just use the installer. Once you have activated a particular environment, whatever you install just with the normal pip installer will get installed into that environment. Okay, it doesn't get installed into all of them. It doesn't get installed into the base. It gets installed into that one. So to install into this one, we can say pip install, and now the name of the package is Django, and there's an expression for what version you want, and this one tilde equal 1.11.0. It's sort of an interesting expression. So it says, I want the most recent version of 1.11, however high that might be, but I don't want it to go any higher than 1.11. So if it's all the way up to 1.12.5, no, I just want 1.11.9. So we're going to do that now. We're going to press enter. And we do some downloading and stuff, but this doesn't take so long that I'm going to pause it. So look what's coming down. It's Django 1.11.9. Now, you'll remember when we built the last environment for Django 1.11, we got 1.11.8, and I think that's because it came from the close-in repositories of the Anaconda people, and when we use pip, I think we cast a wider net, okay, and that's fine, and it works just the way we want it. So we get an even newer version of Django here. And it says it installed Django and PyTZ, which is what happened the last time we installed Django. We just got slightly newer versions, slightly newer version of Django itself, which is okay. Okay, and now if we say Conda list, you'll see what's in here, and it includes Django 1.11.9. Okay. Now, what do we do with these environments? Well, you can see here that we can activate them at the command line and work at the command line. People in my courses tend to do a lot of their work using a really cool Python IDE called PyCharm. And when we create a PyCharm project, or even if we have one already, there's a place to go to configure it to say, oh, this is the environment that we want to use. Okay, so if we have an environment called another Django 11, it's possible for us to go into PyCharm, into that project, and into the properties, and configure it to use the Anaconda environment called another Django 11. And then when we open that project, it just uses the environment. It's like that's the only world that it knows about. Okay, so that either we're going to use it at the command line, or we could use it with an IDE like PyCharm. Okay, so I want to close out of this command prompt, and I guess we can always shut down a command prompt with the command exit. Oh, sorry, you have to spell it right though. Exit. Okay. And now I want to fire up Anaconda Navigator again, because I want to show you that the changes that we made from the command line are visible to Navigator. This is one world, and we've got two alternative ways to look at it. So when we click on environments, okay, you can see that in addition to plain old Python development and Django 11 development and the base that we have another Django 11. If we click on that, okay, we'll see that, okay, it's got, what's the Python it has? 3.6.4. What's the Django that has, it should have Django here somewhere. I don't know why we can't find Django. This isn't good. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We should have Django here. So I'm not exactly seeing why. I'm going to put this on pause and go find the Django. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. So this is interesting because in the Mac version of this tool, it works slightly differently. But I can see here that when we look at another Django 11 under Anaconda Navigator now, we don't see Django. Probably because we installed it with pip, I guess. And I think that's probably a bug. I don't know why. Because if we go back again and we fire up the... well, let's just do this. Let's just say that we want to fire up the terminal. Okay, and so we're in environment, another Django 11, and we can just say Conda List, and we'll see that Django 1.11.9 is there, and you can see it was installed with pip, and maybe that's what it's complaining about. But I don't recall that the macOS version had this issue. Perhaps it did, and I missed it. So you can use either tool to get this job done. Okay. Anaconda Navigator is kind of cool. It's very visual. It's very graphic. Okay. I've really grown up on the command line version and the cheat sheet, which I do pretty well with, the combination of those two. And it's probably true that when we've got examples in textbooks and that kind of stuff, they're going to be more compatible with using the command line. But I've shown you both, and they ought to serve you well, and you'll decide what you like the best. So having said that, I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.